Good evening and welcome back to the Ask Dr. Renee Show here at blackdoctor.org. I am so excited. It's May again. It's May. May is Allergy and Asthma Awareness Month. And if you've watched me for any period of time, then you know these are two things that are very near and dear to my heart because I have severe asthma and I have severe food allergies as well as I have environmental allergies. So it is my duty, and I take this task on every year, to help educate as many people as I can, which is what I do all year long, really, about asthma and allergies. So, first thing I want to do is make certain that you all are aware of my TEDx talk, which talks about my asthma story. Please make sure you go check it out. It is on YouTube, and I will post the link up here so you can see it. There it is on the lovely ticker. It is right there, drrenee.co/TEDxUICADR. And it is case sensitive, and that'll take you directly to the YouTube video. So please watch my TEDx talk. This is also in the post as well. So if you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever you're watching on, that information will be there as well. So please go watch my TEDx talk. It's literally 12 minutes long. And yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. And so that is part of my asthma education was that. And then today is May 1st, 2025. So it is today that it starts Asthma Allergy and Awareness Month. Last year, I did 31 reels, one for every day of Asthma and Allergy Awareness Month. And I'm going to do the same this year. So the first video will launch at the end of today's show. So at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, and that is 4 p.m. Pacific, the reel will be up on Ask Dr. Renee, as well as the YouTube short will be up on my YouTube channel, Ask Dr. Renee, and on TikTok. Don't quote me, I'll work on it. but hopefully TikTok as well. Okay, give me grace on TikTok. But yes, so I will be educating you about different things about asthma and allergies. It might be historical facts. It'll be interesting information that you probably had no idea about. So that's what I'm taking on again for May. So I'm really excited. Today's show, we have two amazing ladies that I am so blessed to know. And their stories are so amazing. And I hope that you all will be kind to them and listen and visit their websites and, support their foundations and all that great stuff. But let's get into it. Our first guest is Leonis Quinn. Leonis, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to introduce everyone to you. So I've already told everyone today is the beginning of May, and it's May is Allergy and Asthma Awareness Month. And Leonis and I met actually virtually first, and then we finally met in person. But she has a story about asthma, and I wanted to share with you guys. And also I want her to talk about her lovely foundation and all the great work they're doing. So Leonis, please tell us your story.
First of all, thank you, Dr. Renee, for having me on this platform on your show. Like you said, we met, we clicked. I just think she's just a lovely person, so full of life, and just knows asthma. If anybody knows, Renee knows asthma like the back of her hand, and just a genuinely good person. So yeah, so my story is about my son Anthony, who diagnosed with asthma when he was 2 years old, and at the time, 2 years old, he had a few attacks before they finally diagnosed with him with asthma. I knew he had asthma way before they told me he did because I'm an asthmatic myself. Yep, and
And
so
you're a
we know.
nurse.
Yeah, and I'm a nurse. And so we know what it looks like. We know how, the symptoms. We know, I need anybody to tell me, what, he has asthma. Okay, I already know that. So diagnosed, fast forward, he was with a brilliant pulmonologist at Children's Hospital of Michigan, Detroit. And we with her, she had a clinic, outside clinic that had a few other pulmonologists and allergists that worked with her. And we were there quite frequently. Dr. I won't say her name. She retired when Tony turned 10 years old. And he had the best care. I would call her in the middle of the night. Tony would get sick. She would call the pharmacy for prescription, of course, prednisone. That's the staple thing you have an exacerbation at the time. And just kept up with us. All the time. So she retired, and instead of finding another clinic, we just stayed there because everybody knew Tony there. We had been there 8 years already. Fast forward, Tony would go there a lot. He was sick a lot. He missed a lot of school. Um, Mind you, I did everything right. I thought I did anyway. Did everything right. Severe asthma, as you know, severe asthma is hard to control, even with the best kind of medications you have. It's still hard to control. And Tony had severe asthma. um, just moving forward with time, missed schools, and I missed work. And Tony, he did really well in school. He graduated from college with a degree in computer science. He loved computers. Um, he had a normal childhood, so to speak. He played ice hockey. He did really well for a couple of years with that, but and as you can imagine, playing a really exercise induced asthma related sport like skating, especially on the ice,
Ice in the cold.
was challenging. Yes, it was challenging to say the least, but he loved it so much and he was very good. He made the travel team. My other son, they traveled a lot with playing hockey, but it was always during the hockey competitions. We had to stop in the middle, take a breathing treatment, stop and sit down, take a rest, Tony. After a while, he was like 9. He said, "Mommy, I just can't do this anymore." So we stopped playing ice hockey, and that was the end of it because it became very strenuous and it was hard to kind of keep up. So fast forward, like I said, Tony turned 21. At the time, I did not know that you were taking off your parents' health care insurance. I had no idea. I had no idea. And but mind you, the doctor we went to, the clinic, they knew. They never said a word. We went for a well visit one day. Tony was doing really, really well. Just go and check you out. Just have a checkup. Tony had allergy shots. He had pulmonologies. He had sleep study. He had whatever you can think of with asthma. He had it. He had it. He had everything. It was a well visit, just trying to see how you were doing. At the end of the visit, I go to pay my bill as usual. Get to the front desk, and they say, "Oh, this is Tony's last day here." What? And I said, "I'm sorry. What did you say? I didn't. I didn't quite hear you. This is Tony's last day here." And I stood there. I'm trying to understand what she was talking about and where you get this from. Oh, when he turned 21, he no longer has his dad's healthcare insurance. He was already 21. She said, "We already missed three payments already. Haven't been paid in 3 months." I had no idea. They never told me these things. They never said, it's time for Tony to transition to care. They never said anything at all to me. We were there at least 3 or 4 times a month. We were there a lot. They never said a word. They just never said anything. So I was, of course, heartbroken. I don't even know the words to use that I was. I was so shaken with this new um, news. And Tony's a very quiet person, just really quiet, but a very strong person. And he didn't say a word. He said nothing. Like always, even when Tony was the sickest, he would always say, "Mommy, I'm okay." Those were his words, no matter what was going on. "Mommy, I'm okay." That was it. And he just stood there at that time. And I asked the clerk, I'm like, "What are we supposed to do?" I said, "Can I talk to the doctor? Can I?" "Oh, he's busy right now, got other patients." I never talked to the doctor after that. Um, she said, "You can find a free clinic." I didn't know there was, I didn't know there were free clinics. I had no idea. I'd never been to one. So we left there. I was in tears. I didn't let Tony see me cry because I didn't want to upset him. You know what I mean? So I was
Yeah.
literally in tears of what to do with a child that has severe asthma, was on medication, allergy medications, inhalers, rescue inhalers, um, what you call it, other inhalers? I got a blank.
Long
Long
acting.
acting, yes, inhalers. He had the whole gamut. And when we went places, we had this whole backpack, nebulizers up to carry. We carried everything with us at all times. So I'm thinking to myself, where am I going to go? So I got home and immediately I tried to research free clinics in our area. I did find one. I found a free clinic, made the appointment. I went there and the people there was so nice to me. The doctor was great. He was just had all the right answers. I asked questions. Tony asked questions. The medications were going to be free, although they weren't the same medications that he was used to, but they were free. I'm like, okay, cool. I did my happy dance. I was so excited that we found someone to take Tony, do it for visits. But that was not the case. That was not the case. Doctor said, "Oh, by the way, Leonis, if Tony ever gets sick, we don't have those kind of services here. You need to go to the emergency room." Again, another blow again, another blow again. How can I keep my son in medical care? So we did just that. The emergency room became my doctor's office.
Mm.
By the way, I did offer to pay the doctor where he'd been going before. I said, "Can I just pay you? I'll pay. I can pay. I work. I have a career. I can pay you." Oh no, you won't be able to afford to pay us and buy the medications till you won't be able to afford that. That's what they told me. You won't be able to afford to keep up Tony's medical care. You won't be able to do it. So they they looked into my pocket and saw, I guess, what they thought couldn't afford.
Right.
Yeah. So, like I said, emergency rooms became the doctor's office for Tony at least 4 times a month. We
Mm.
were there. Maybe even it all depend on the season. It might have been 5 times a month. You know what I'm saying? So that happened, and I applied for disability for Tony because he had a degree. He even had a job, but he could not work. He would always be calling off. So he got fired from one job. He's fired because he was always absent due to his asthma. And I applied for Medicaid more than once. Every time I applied, it was denied, 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 denied. And they also said he's not disabled. Well, what do you call it? What do you call disability? So with that, Tony became depressed. I took him to a psychiatrist for treatment because he was depressed. He would just not into anything. He would just sleep all day, sad. I took him there, and he was diagnosed with clinical depression. He was depressed, but he did not want to take the medication. He said, "I don't want to take the medication. It makes me feel really weird." So he didn't take the medicines, but I knew he was depressed. So with that, the emergency room visits became frequent. I would take him, my husband would take him, my youngest son would take. It became a family affair. If you know about asthma, anybody in your family that has asthma, I always say the whole family has it.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're all involved. Everybody's involved in Tony's care, whether it's in the middle of the night, you're not sleeping through that, you're awake, you're up, we're all up, trying to see about Tony. And so with that, it was it's like a year into doing all that back and forth to the emergency room. Um, Tony told me, he said, "Mommy, I'm tired of living like this." He said, "I can't do this anymore." He said, it is just too much. And I'm thinking to myself, what do you mean? I said, no, we're going to find something that's going to work for us. You're doing good, just kind of, pep talk and trying to keep his spirits up. I'm like, no, don't think like that. Maybe a week after that, I work nights. I still work nights. And my youngest son called me. He was screaming like a girl, like an eighth octave scream. It was so piercing. I can still hear it today. I can hear the screaming. And I was on my way home. I had my backpack. I was on my way to my car. And, and like I said, my phone, I said it was Andre. I thought Tony had a bad asthma attack. And I just kept saying, stop that screaming, Andre, stop that screaming. He finally said, Mommy, Tony left us. And still, it didn't resonate with me what that meant. I knew he wasn't working at the time. Like, where did he go? I said,
Right.
Andre, where did he go? It's 7:30 in the morning. Where did he go? He started screaming all over again. He was crying hysterically. Then I started running down the fairway to the parking garage. I started screaming because in my mind, I knew it was really bad, but still not thinking that Tony had passed away. That those thoughts never entered my mind until I got to the parking lot and Andre finally said, Mommy, Tony passed away. The EMS took him to the hospital. In disbelief, I'm in the parking lot just running around in a circle. I couldn't find my car. And one of my coworkers saw me and I was hysterical. She said, Leonis, what's wrong with you? I said, Tony's very sick. I can't find my car. I need to go to the hospital. So she said, I'll take you. I'll take you. And I got into her car and I was still just in disbelief and still crying, hysterically crying. On her dashboard, she had a Bible there. She said, get the Bible, and just start reading. I'm like, I can't read this. I can't read this. So she opened it while she's flying down the freeway. Now, mind you, the hospital's only 10 minutes away. And so she called her pastor and said, please pray for her. Her son is very sick, very sick. I get to the hospital. My husband was there, my other son, they were there, and they were holding each other up. And I'm like, what's wrong? I'm telling you, it still not clicked to me that what had actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then my husband said, he didn't make it this time, babe. What? That's when it hit me of what they were saying. So I just started screaming. We were in this little private room,
Mm-hmm.
in the emergency room, and I was hysterical. I ran out to the desk. I want to see my son. I need to see Anthony. It was like, hold on, ma'am. They're very calm. And in the meantime, I had to call my sister. My sister came down there and to be with us. But yeah, but it was a day that is etched into my memory. Of course, you lose a child um, in that manner so suddenly is tragic. You never ever, you never ever get over it. It never leaves you. It never leaves you.
Sure.
Um, so, and 6 months after that, my husband passed away. He had a stroke in the same year. The same year my son passed, my husband passed, and uh, I my husband had hypertension anyway. So I just think it was all a combination of the passing of my son.
Yep.
They did CPR on. They didn't tell me the whole story what happened that night. They never told me. I know they did CPR on Tony, but beyond that, they it's like bits and pieces that they told me what actually happened
Gotcha.
uh, that night. Yeah. So yeah, but with that said, my husband passed. I tried to commit suicide a couple times. Thank God it didn't work. I thank
Amen.
God
Amen. Because you need to be here.
I need to be here. And I told my son that I said I just want to kill myself. And thank God I told him that. He said, "Mommy, you would leave me too." And
That shook you.
that's what shook me.
Yeah.
That's what did it. And those thoughts left me, and I never went back to that space ever again. To thinking about taking my own life. And thank God for now that fast forward, it was years before I could even say Tony's name out loud. It was
Right.
just so
Mm-hmm.
painful. But we started the foundation and to honor Tony. And this foundation, it does great works for the people who suffer with asthma. Like I said, I'm a nurse, I'm an asthma educator by trade, and I've served on many different boards of well, just one really at the moment, Allergy Asthma Network. I'm a part of their organization, and so what we do is provide education and awareness, and we also provide resources that will help eliminate, I think eliminate, decrease hospitalization rates. We do air purifiers and cooler mattress covers and spacers and heat flow meters, nebulizers. We do all of these things. We do for free.
And there's so many things I think that people don't know that are absolutely necessary for asthmatics just to live day to day.
Yes.
And, I've had in the past, so if you've watched the Ask Dr. Renee show, then you know May is Allergy and Asthma Awareness Month because I always do something. But I had, and I'm gonna lose her name. Okay, but it's oh God, and I thought I knew the name of the company now too. I can't remember, but I'm gonna get into it in a second. But she creates she has allergies, and she's a Black woman, and she creates the products like the mattress covers and the pillow covers and all that stuff. And her products are sold in Macy's. And she actually just opened her own store in New York. Hold on, I'm gonna tell you.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh shoot, that's not her. Allergy home. Hold on one second.
So
Clean Design Home is the name of the company, and I will put the link in the post. But Clean Design Home is owned by Robin Wilson, a Black woman. She had allergies as a kid, and she created this company, and she's amazing.
Wow.
And she just opened her own store, her standalone store, flagship store in New York. I think it was last year, if not the year before. So yes, and then her stuff is sold at Macy's and Wayfair and stuff, and her stuff is fabulous. I have some sheets. I have mattress and pillow covers. I also have shower curtains. But yeah, she's really cool. And then she even has some kitchen items too. Now I can't remember what they were, but yeah, it was kitchen items too. But yeah, these things people don't realize. Dust and mites and all of that are big, huge environmental, not even environmental, but insect allergies that asthmatics struggle with. And so that is why it's so important to have the mattress cover and the pillow cover and all of that. And then air filters, because we're allergic to a lot of things environmentally that are in the air. Air filters are so important to asthmatics. Humidifiers are important. A lot of asthmatics have humidifiers on their heating systems of their houses. They have huge filters on their homes, on the heating and the cooling systems, so that air that they get blown into the house and heat or get into the house is not contaminated with all this other stuff. And my mom had even researched a way to clean like the wood and stuff to get rid of dust. But it was a home like mixing thing because I was allergic to all of those things. Fragrance. And I was allergic, like the wood cleaner smelled like lemon pine. You know what I mean? Like all and that would trigger me. So she had found a recipe, and that's what we cleaned our wood with. And she had found this recipe. And so it's so much that goes, because you have to breathe. I keep telling people think asthma is not a big deal. I mean, if it's controlled, it's not a big deal. When it's not controlled, it is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And because you can't control your environments, you can control your home for the most part. Because we do know through our work, we know that there's a lot of people who live in apartment buildings and, things like that they can't control their environment. But if you can control your home, but you can't control the school, you can't control your work and all of those, you can't control walking outside. I mean, remember a couple summers ago with the smoke from Canada, we're both from Detroit. You could visibly see it was something wrong with the air.
Absolutely.
And so it's, all of those things are things that are going to affect asthmatics. You can do everything, take all the medications you're supposed to take. But if you walk outside and everything outside is against you. There's nothing you
Yes.
can do. You know,
Cannot do
all the
anything.
masks in the world, you're
Yes.
gonna end up inhaling it at some point. Same thing
Absolutely.
if you go to work and you can't control what's going on at work. You don't
That's
know that
exactly
the girl
right.
next to you has a cat at home and you allergic to cats and she got
Yep.
cat hair all over her.
Yep. That's
Or
so
a
true.
customer coming in the door. And these
Yep.
are things you cannot control. You just
You
have
cannot.
no control over them.
That's
So
right.
I am, and I had allergy shots too. So I always say I'm
Mhm.
very blessed that I did have allergy shots because this morning I ran outside in the park.
Mhm.
No problems. There are lots of trees and
Yeah.
grass and
Mhm.
everything in the park,
Mhm.
and I was fine.
Yeah.
And it's because of those allergy shots that I
Yeah.
had no problems with my environmental
Mhm.
allergies. Thank you, Jesus. But
That's right.
it's so important that people don't understand. It can be very expensive to be an asthmatic because the
Mhm.
medications alone aren't cheap. But then
They
you
are
have
not
to
cheap.
buy all this other extra stuff to make sure that your
Yeah.
environment is safe for you to be in because asthma
Absolutely.
attacks happen at night. And if you are in a bed in a
Yes.
dusty room and you know,
Yes.
your mattress is old and
Yeah.
all these things, you
Yeah.
could end up with an asthma attack every night.
Mhm.
And
Every night.
it's
That
very
is so
expensive.
true. And I say those things. You are so well, of course you're on point. It's I say these things when I meet people all the time.
Mhm.
But sometimes it's like people go, really? They almost like not believing you.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's that part. And once I talk about my son, it becomes more believable of what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. I'm like, but I'm an asthmatic myself. I can tell you firsthand what you just said and
Mhm.
about how to keep our own environments cleaned and as we can. And
Yeah.
sometimes we can't, sometimes we can't, sometimes we don't have any control over even our own environments. Like you live with apartments have mold
Exactly.
around you, your basement is moldy, your bathroom is moldy, things
Basement
like
is
that
moldy in the building you live
in
in,
the building. Yeah,
but you have no control over that because it's
you have
not
no
your
control over
basement.
that.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Wow, those are so
Yeah.
good points that I always make. I tell people, and I know asthma is a disease. And another, not Dr. Renee, I want you to speak on this point also. People tell me, I outgrew my asthma. You did it.
So
You
that's
did
the
it.
other thing that I've talked about is my TEDx talk where I told about my asthma story, and I said in there how you
Yes,
don't
yes.
outgrow asthma.
You don't.
You just it's well controlled.
Yes.
I have not had an asthma attack.
Hmm.
Well, actually, were you at that conference? You weren't there, I don't think. I was at the US Asthma Summit, I think it was in
Okay.
2022, I think it was. I was sick
Okay.
as a dog. I was so sick. My mother was like, "Are you still going?" I said, "Of course, mommy, I'm speaking and they're flying."
Yeah.
Yes. And she's like,
Yeah.
"Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I took my breathing machine with me, of course. And
Yes.
when I tell you, I was drugging myself every night in that hotel room. I would
Yes.
wake up and could not breathe. It was awful.
I remember that.
I cannot function. I'm dying. I was like, this is miserable.
Yes.
But that's the last time I had an asthma attack. But that was the first time in a very long time, like
Mhm.
probably decades. I
Yeah.
just tend to not get sick. Thank you, Jesus.
Yes.
I have my rescue inhaler. It's with me at
Mhm.
all times, but I rarely use it. And it's such the opposite because when I was
Yeah.
younger,
Yeah.
my parents had good insurance, so I remember we
Yes.
paid $2 for those inhalers.
Mhm.
When I
Mhm.
tell you, I needed an inhaler every 5 minutes, and it was so
Yeah.
bad. I would see because my mom, my sister, and I have asthma.
Yes.
Mine's is the worst though.
Mhm.
I would steal their inhalers. It was so bad. I mean, when I tell you it was out
Yeah.
of control and I needed
Yes.
them inhalers, I was
Mhm.
puffing in them inhalers like it was going out of style. So
Yes.
this is such a difference because I have prescriptions that actually expire because I don't
Yes.
never
Yes.
ever fill it because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still using the other inhaler. It's got,
Yes.
they tell you how many puffs now. I was like, it's got
Mhm.
a lot of puffs left. I'm good.
Mhm.
So so it's really, really sad when people say you outgrew it. You didn't outgrow it because
Yeah.
best believe you run into one of your asthma triggers,
There you go.
you're gonna have a reminder of your life that
You're
you're
gonna.
asthmatic.
That's
A
exactly right.
reminder of your life. And that's
Yes.
what I'm saying. You just haven't encountered one of
Yes.
your asthma triggers recently.
Mm-hmm.
But if you
Mm-hmm.
do, and you're not prepared, because if
Yep.
you think you outgrew it, then you're probably not going to be prepared. Then it's
You
going
won't
to
be
slap
prepared.
you in the face.
That's exactly
So
right.
that was the thing with me. That's why I was like, I'm going to go to the speaking engagement, because really, as long as I took the medication, I was like,
Yeah.
I just have to get through this. And what happened was
Mhm.
the seasons changed, and it just jolted me. I forgot. It wasn't I forgot. The seasons changed at a
Yes.
different time, because global
Mhm.
warming. So
Mhm.
I usually have April and October on my month. So my doctor and I, we talked about it. I take my allergy medicine because we're gonna just be ready in case something happens.
Yes.
Well, we got through those months, so I was fine.
Yes.
So this was
Mhm.
November, so I could be
Mhm.
fine. Well, then I got sick.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
just was taking, I took my breathing treatments, and
Mhm.
me and my doctor were very in close contact. We were texting. He knew I was going to travel. He's like, "You'll be
Yes.
fine," and I was like, "Yeah, I got everything. I'll be good." And I took care of myself, and sure enough,
Mhm.
I did. And it was crazy, because if you looked at me, you didn't think I was sick. But when I tell you, I
Wow.
was
I
struggling
remember
to
that.
breathe when
I was
at
there.
night. Yes, at night it was awful, and then I
Yes.
had this cough.
Mhm.
So yeah, so you just have to you have to be prepared, and that's
Oh,
why
absolutely.
people need to realize you didn't outgrow it. It's well controlled, but you need to be prepared, because you
Absolutely.
never know. You can move from an environment where you were
Mhm.
fine, but then you move down to Georgia where the pollen is so thick on your car you can't see.
Yep. That is so
And
true.
all of a sudden you're sick again. And
That's
that's what we're
so
saying.
true.
You didn't outgrow it. It was well controlled, because in your
Mhm.
environment, the pollen wasn't like that. Well, now
Yeah.
you're in
That's
a place
exactly
where the
right.
pollen is awful. So
Yeah.
and my sister's one of those people, bless her heart. She went and got this job, and she was sent on a business trip, and she went, and it was in a plant with wheat or something. And
Okay.
she said it was awful. She felt so bad. And mind you, this girl never had a serious asthma attack a day in her life.
Wow.
So
Mhm.
she tells me this later. She goes, I didn't want to call you because I was like, she's gonna think I'm a punk, because I know how she struggled to breathe, because I watched
Yes.
her, and
Yes.
this is no big deal. So there's no
Yeah.
way I can call and tell her that she finally got so sick that we told her she had to go to urgent care
Wow.
away at her business
Yes.
trip. I'm like, you
Yes.
have to go to urgent care. You've got to Google find it and
Wow.
go, because you're struggling.
Yeah.
And she was like, Ree, I just didn't want to say anything because I knew how you would struggle, and I knew that it
Wow.
wasn't that bad. And
That's crazy.
I was like, crazy girl.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so
Wow.
she never had been sick like I had been sick. And I mean,
Yes.
I tell everybody, I know what it feels like not to be able to breathe. I'm sure you do too.
I do
And it's
too.
not fun. And that's why I am so meticulous about taking care of my asthma and educating others, because I've
Absolutely.
met so many people who are walking through life not being able to breathe. And guess
Yep.
what? In
Me too.
2025, you don't have to be that way.
Me too. You do not.
Way too many
You do not.
medications.
Yep.
We know way too much now.
Yep.
There is no reason that you should
Nope.
have to walk around
There
being
is no
asthmatic, not being able to breathe.
reason.
None.
I tell people this should not be. This shouldn't be where, like in November, this is my last story. This November, it was on Channel 2 News with this gentleman lived in Taylor. He was having an exacerbation, like like a bad one.
Yeah.
He went to the local urgent care near his house, and they declined to see him because he didn't have $100 and he had no health care insurance. They saw him audibly wheezing. The dad said he was bent over because he could, and they said, sorry, he can't be seen here. They turned him away. Honestly, um, he went back home, and the father said he collapsed on the floor when he walked into the house, and they did CPR on him. The EMS did come, take him to the hospital on a ventilator. Um, they say he probably would never ever be the same
Right.
if he lived.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what ever happened to him after that, but there's none. There's no reason for that to happen to him. even if they were not going to see him, at least call EMS for him. At least
Exactly.
called someone to, call EMS while he's in your office. Why'd you let him leave your clinic like that? So it's so many scenarios and so many.
Exactly. That's why we need to fix the insurance. It won't be done in this administration. I hate to say it,
No, it
but
won't. It won't.
insurance has gotten. We
It
got to
won't.
look at these things again because there's some sort of disconnect there that
Yes.
the people who know about medicine aren't the ones making the decisions about insurance, which is
No, no, no,
sense. And
no,
then,
no.
this urgent care, I understand. Urgent cares, a lot of them are privately owned. Yes, there
Yes.
are some hospital ones owned, but there are some
Yes.
privately owned ones. And I understand you need to pay your bills and stuff, but also
Yes.
you shouldn't let people die because then you're going to have to live
No.
with that too. And I don't know
Oh
how you
yeah.
deal with that you turn this man away
For
who
$100.
clearly was for $100. Exactly. Who
$100.
clearly was having trouble. And like
Yes.
I said, you have to be able to breathe. There's a whole lot of things we can walk around with, but you cannot walk. You can't walk if you can't
You
breathe.
cannot. You cannot.
And when
You
it's
cannot.
that bad, you can usually see it's that bad because
Yes.
I've been in a case where I literally, you couldn't hear me. I couldn't talk to you. I couldn't
Yes.
nothing.
I've
I
been
was
there too.
useless. And my
I've been
mother
there.
was driving me. This is before cell phone. She was driving me to the ER and she pulled over because I couldn't respond. And she was like, wait a minute, and my mom's a respiratory therapist. I think you knew that.
Wow.
And so my
Yes.
mother pulled over on the side of the road and ran around the car to my side and shook me. I remember this. I was like 10 and was like, Renee! And I like vaguely opened my eyelid and she realized there was still breath in my body.
Yes.
And ran back around the car and drove on
Took off. Yes.
because she knew that it was that bad because she had already, I heard her. I could hear her loud and clear calling my name. I literally
Couldn't respond.
could not respond.
Couldn't respond.
Meaning, I couldn't move a finger. I'm telling you, I barely opened my eyelid.
Yes. I
I
understand.
couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mother knew we're in trouble. She ran back.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is before cell phones. She was already on her way to the hospital, and the hospital wasn't 5 minutes away. She was like, we will keep on going and I'll get there.
Wow.
I think at that point, like if I hadn't opened my eyelids, she probably would have pulled me over on the side of the road and started CPR and prayed.
Yes.
But
yes.
because that, she was like, okay, she's still there. And that's how we, ended up going to the ER. But yeah, you just never know. And then one of the other things that we need to stress is this month and every day, our friend Thomas Silvera posted on LinkedIn yesterday and said, it's beyond May. And it is beyond May.
I saw that.
Us, because we are asthmatics every single day of the year. And
every single day.
You know, I have severe food allergies, and that's every single day I have to eat. Every day I have to eat and make a choice. So it is definitely beyond May, but you have to know that asthma attacks happen so fast. You could be fine
quick.
1 minute and completely not fine the next.
Absolutely.
All it takes is one asthma trigger. And when I tell you that can be the most violent thing that you've ever seen, but somebody can go from laughing to wheezing in 2 seconds.
I've seen that before too.
Me too.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
I'm sure
you know, emotions have a lot to do with it. So you could be crying and the next thing you know, you wheezing. You could be laughing and next thing you know, you're wheezing. Like, it's just crazy, but people have to take it seriously. And I'm so thankful to you for sharing your story. And please, I've been scrolling her website. Please visit her website. And if you can, donate. If you're in the Detroit area, when's the next event you have?
The next event we're having is bowling, May 17th.
May 17th.
May 17th. We're going to be at the skate bowling lanes in Troy from 3 to 5. The tickets are $27. Include your shoes, your pizza, laser tag. It's just going to be a whole lot of fun. You can pay at the door.
Okay, so you guys go to her website, get your tickets, go bowling if you're in the Detroit area. And if you can't go, because I don't think I'll be in town that weekend, I will just buy a ticket so somebody else can go maybe. But please, you guys. $27.
Support our cause. And then July 11th is our Black Tie fundraiser. It's always a blast. This year we have Debbie Dingle as our keynote speaker.
Debbie Dingle is senator, right?
Yes. Yep. And she comes to the Allergy Action Network U.S. Asthma Summit. She speaks every time. she comes there. And so she would be our keynote speaker. The MC is Lori Pitton to MC. Lori Pinson would be our MC. Mary Sheffield from the from presidential Congresswoman, Councilwoman
Councilwoman.
Mary
He
Sheffield.
actually is
Yes.
running for mayor of
The
Detroit.
mayor, yeah, she'll be there. A live band. It'll be at Detroit Yacht Club. The tickets are $100, but as you know, it all goes to a good cause.
Yes,
We
yes,
always pour back into the community with the monies that we raise.
yes.
I
She
don't have a paid
she
staff.
literally buys the equipment and just hands it out to people, whoever
That's
needs it,
exactly what I do.
hands it to them. So please, you guys,
I
please,
do.
please
Yes, please do.
support the foundation. And thank
Yes,
you, like I said, thank you so much for sharing your story.
thank
And
you.
we will just keep doing this work and keep educating the people.
Thank you so much.
No
I
problem.
appreciate you having me.
No problem. So I told you guys we had two amazing guests today. So here is our second guest. We have Helen Hammond Redding. And Helen has an amazing story, and she's doing also amazing work in this space. Helen and I are both on the Chicago Asthma Consortium Board. And for local Chicagoans, the World Asthma Day is on Tuesday, and Chicago Asthma Consortium is having a World Asthma Day conference. So Helen will speak on that as well because she is participating in that. And so I want her to talk about that. But Helen and I met in person last year because we both were in DC championing for, yes, for asthma and allergy at the Capitol. And so there was 5 bills. We were in the group together speaking to a lot of the Illinois legislators, and there was 5 bills that we were talking about that had to do with asthma and allergies. And so that's how we actually met in person. And we also had figured out before that we are actually sorority sisters. So Helen is just amazing. And like I said, the funniest thing is that, and it's weird that because we met on the little boxes, for how many years we sat there in meetings, we had never met in person. I never knew her story. I knew she had a foundation, didn't know her story till we were sitting there in DC. And I was like, oh my God, had no idea. So her story is, I mean, it really touched my heart. I think my mom is a respiratory therapist. When I got to my phone after and called my mother and told her, she was like, what? And I said, because my mom is also an AK too. So my mom was like, oh my goodness, this is awful. So I want you to share your story, and then like I said, we'll talk about World Asthma Day. We'll talk about the foundation and all that great stuff.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Renee, for inviting me on today. And it's always great to meet persons and meet people in person after seeing them in the little boxes for several years. And so it was awesome meeting you and working with you at the Capitol last year, and continuing to work with you at the Chicago Asthma Consortium. But sure, I'm real happy to share my story. My story started when my son, Christopher, died of an exercise-induced asthma attack at the age of 18. Christopher was a 3-sport student athlete at Lake Zurich High School. He had participated in sports and organized sports since he was probably 6 or 7 years old: football, baseball, basketball, track, all of that stuff. And so, we've never had any indications of asthma, never been diagnosed with asthma, because athletes, of course, have to go through physicals every year, never any indication. And so Chris graduated from high school in 2003 from Lake Zurich High School. He was recruited to play football at Drake University, where he matriculated probably in July of 2003 because he had to go and start football camp. That same year, Chris came home for Thanksgiving holiday. He and some of his buddies drove home. And on the day that he was to return to school, like 4 or 5 days after he got home, he went for a jog because he was always working out. His body was always in shape. And he collapsed just about 2 blocks from our home. And he died instantly from an exercise-induced asthma attack. We had no indication, had never been diagnosed with asthma. We didn't know a thing about asthma. And it was just a devastating loss for us. He was our youngest son at age 18. We had 3 sons. And he was just in perfect shape. I mean, this kid, he would jog to school every morning, his junior, senior year. And his dad would follow him to school in his little car, bringing all his book bags and everything. muscles of steel, worked out in the weight room every day. As a matter of fact, Lake Zurich High School has dedicated their weight room at Lake Zurich High School to him. He was an all-star, a state all-star, all conference, just all the accolades that you could get for being an athlete. So who would have thought that he would have died from an asthma attack? And so, sorry, I always get emotional, even though it's all these years later. So we wanted to continue his legacy. He was well loved in the community. And of course, no one could believe what had happened. And so we started awarding scholarships at his high school the year after he passed away to students that met our criteria, not necessarily student athletes with asthma. And then after I retired from Citibank in 2013, we decided to form a foundation, the Christopher D. Redding Youth Asthma Foundation, that folded in the scholarships as well as asthma management education, so that other families could not go through the same loss that we did. And so for many years, we worked in Cook County, presenting workshops and health fairs. But it was always our dream to further our work by going into communities and really helping and treating youth with asthma. And so that's how we started the Lake County Asthma Van, which I'm sure we'll talk more about when we talk about my foundation.
Yes.
But that is our story as to why we got started and the devastating loss that we had as a result of the death of our youngest son, totally unexpectedly.
So and the thing about your story that was so crazy to me was that he had 2 asthma attacks, the first one and the second one. And I don't understand how the first time they didn't tell you, oh, he might want to carry an inhaler, because all he had to do literally was take the inhaler before he ran, because that's what I used to do when I first started running. And then I was fine. And
Right.
and the one of the key things I also like to point out was that insurance is a mess. Because I'm sure you had great insurance. You just said you worked at Citibank. You had great insurance. I'm sure you had great doctors, but somehow there was a disconnect and they didn't feel the need to educate you guys on this simple information, because I'm sure you'd have went and called in the prescription. You'd have got the prescription if they gave it to you.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought that up. His first asthma attack had occurred the year before as a junior in high school while he was running track. He was taken to the hospital and he was given an inhaler, but we didn't receive asthma education.
Exactly.
We didn't know anything about it. We didn't know that he should have that thing on him constantly. And so, I mean, he got the rescue inhaler as well as the controller, but no one told us that these are things that he absolutely has to do every single day. He has to do the controller. It was just given to him, similar to what we experienced, on our asthma van. We have families that come in that have inhalers, and they don't have the education as to how they're supposed to use it or when they're supposed to use it. And so that was a primary reason for our foundation, was to ensure that the education was there, that families knew that, that inhaler has to be there all the time. If Chris had his inhaler, who knows? Right. He may have survived that day, but we just
never know. Yeah,
will. Exactly.
But it's called a rescue inhaler for that reason. For people that don't know, it is supposed to rescue you if you are in trouble. This is the inhaler. This is the medication that is supposed to be able to turn things around enough for you to get to whatever you need, but at least help you out.
Right.
And
but who knew, right?
Who knew?
We didn't get the education. It was like, fill the prescription and
And then the other thing, like you said, people will show up with inhalers, and if no one ever shows you how to properly use one, then I promise you are not doing anything but blowing air into your body, and it's not working. Because if you don't use it properly, it's not going to work. And it's so crazy how there's people who have had inhalers for 10, 15 years. No one ever showed them how
to use it.
They had no idea that they were doing it wrong that whole time.
Right. And that brings to mind another story of a few years ago when we first started, our education piece with the foundation. We encountered a mother, that had their child with her, and we said, okay, show us how to use the inhaler. And the child took the inhaler and sprayed it over their shoulder, priming the inhaler, which is what you should do, but didn't know that the proper way to use that inhaler was, use it in his mouth to inhale. So the education is just sorely not there. And it's so critical that we educate our families and our communities
And the one of the reasons that I wrote my book, Mommy, I Can't Breathe, was because I was in a lot of Facebook groups, and I noticed that people did not know in our community specifically. I also did some I did some focus groups for different pharmaceuticals. They were looking for asthmatics, and so I signed up, I qualified. And sitting at those tables, I learned that a lot of people look like us didn't know that there's an allergist and a pulmonologist. Those people specialize in understanding lung diseases like asthma. They just were going to their internal medicine doctor or the pediatrician, and they had no idea that there was actually a specialist that understood and knew everything there was to know about asthma. And I think that it's really important. As a doctor, I love all of the doctors, but I know that allergists and pulmonologists have a leg up because they go to all the conferences and they know the latest and greatest, because as you know, there's all sorts of new medications on the market to help people breathe. There's so many amazing, from when I first was, I was diagnosed as an infant 48 years ago, there's been a whole lot of progress. But if you're just an internal medicine doctor, you don't probably go to those conferences necessarily, so you don't know about the biologics and all this newer stuff. You might see the commercials on TV, but you're not going to know well enough that you would prescribe them. So it's so important that we understand exactly who the specialist is we need to go to and get properly diagnosed, because I know many people that have said, oh, I get bronchitis every year, but that's not probably bronchitis. That's probably asthma. And you probably have some allergies, and that's why you're triggered every time at the same time of the year with this bronchitis.
Right. And so, Dr. Renee, sadly, many of our families that we encounter, because we serve the underserved and the underserved communities, they don't even have primary care physicians. They depend on the emergency department for their care for their children for asthma. And we all know how emergency departments operate sometimes. You're given, you're treated and then you're sent home. There's not necessarily the education there that you need to go along with the asthma. And that's why we have specialists on our Lake County asthma van that specialize in asthma and in allergies. And not only do the children get diagnosed and treated on an ongoing basis every 2 to 3 months as needed, they also get the education that they need. And the families are with them, the parents or guardians are with them, so they also get that education. You're not going to get that all the time in emergency departments.
So tell us more about the van, because that is just awesome. And I've not seen your van. I've of course seen the Mobile Care Chicago van, and I was just blown away. I had a tour of that van a few years ago and was like, wow. Yep.
And so we've had relationship with Mobile Care Chicago since I started the foundation. The executive director, the now executive director, who was a program manager back then, was the first person that I visited to float my idea about, starting an asthma foundation, and Matt Seamer. And of course, he sat down with me and told me all that he knew about that. And I told him, I said, well, I want to do an asthma van, and it's always been my dream. Because when I first researched mobile care, I found out there is an asthma van actually happening in the Illinois area. And so that's why I went to visit Matt. And so, we've worked together with them for years, taking their van to our health fairs and things of that nature in Cook County. And then Matt and I started having conversations. He said, we've always wanted to be up in Lake County, which is where I am based. And so we bounced around the ideas for years. And then finally, we decided to just pull the plug and do a collaboration to bring a mobile asthma van into Lake County. And so we got the funding necessary to do that. And so we have the Lake County Asthma Van, which is operated by my foundation, the Christopher D. Redding Youth Asthma Foundation. And the medical team is provided by Mobile Care Chicago. And so what we do is we treat children aboard the mobile asthma van at their schools. And so we do outreach to many of the schools in Lake County to have them sign our service agreement to bring the van out on a regular basis. We either meet with the superintendent of schools or with the individual principals. And so our primary target communities, because of the high rates of asthma, were Waukegan, North Chicago, and Zion. And so since October of 2023, we have been working to sign up schools and treat the children at those schools since that time. So we currently have about 26 schools that we signed up in those communities, and we are outreaching to other communities in Lake County. Now, the Lake County asthma van can only, serve schools in Lake County, and Matt and Mobile Care continues to work in Cook County. But we have our van is fully staffed. We have an allergist on our van who also specializes in allergies and asthma. We have a second doctor that's really proficient in asthma. So these are specialists that we have on the van. We also have bilingual staff on the van because we have a large number of Spanish-speaking parents and guardians up here. And so they feel comfortable coming onto the van with the ability to converse with someone in their own language. Our schedulers also are bilingual, so we are able to, again, make the parents and guardians feel comfortable when we are getting them to come onto the van. But the entire process starts with, after the service agreement is signed with the schools, then we have to survey, the schools have to send out surveys, respiratory surveys, which has about 7 questions to all the families that would indicate if there are any asthma or allergy symptoms. Once those surveys are returned to our team, we would then contact the parent. Well, we would set up a clinic day at the school based on the number of surveys we get back from that school. And once we schedule the clinic day, our schedulers will then call the parents to schedule 6 to 8 patients per day aboard the asthma van on the date that we've agreed to with the school. Once those children are seen and diagnosed, then follow-up appointments are scheduled every 2 to 3 months as needed to continue to care for those children. And we can care for children up to the age of 18 on our vans. I think Mobile Care, because they've been in this over 26 years, they have students that, have been on their van for many, many years. And that's what we're certainly hoping to accomplish out here in Lake County. They have the families follow us on the van and keep treating those children to ensure that their asthma is controlled and well managed so that they don't have these asthma attacks, so they don't experience an attack that might kill them or even stay in sick all the time.
That's awesome. And I mean, it's so needed, and it's nice that you come to them. And then I like that there's follow-up, because I know I was talking to somebody else about in another state about their, it wasn't a van, but it was like the doctors came to the school.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctors would return to the school, but then when they saw the kids, it was like they just, the follow-up just wasn't there, and they weren't, they had never called in they never filled the prescription. I mean, and of course, when they came back, it was so far, they were, this was months and months later. It was, So I like that, the follow-up and make certain that, things are, happening and changing, because, and actually that program, even though it wasn't the best, it actually is no longer, which is not good either, because obviously these people needed some, care. But yeah, I love that. When I heard about Mobile Care Chicago, I just loved it because of the fact that, yes, they come to the people, come to the community and take care of the kids. The kids are at school anyway. They're able to get care. And then you're in Lake County. I've actually used to have to go to, what is the name of the hospital? It starts with a W up there. I can't think of it now. I've been to Lake Forest, but there's another hospital that's further, and it's in Lake County that I had to go to. And I used to work for the cord blood bank. And so you're right. It was a high Hispanic population, and yes. And and all of the paperwork we received from there were in Spanish and stuff, and I speak Spanish as well, so I would review that paperwork. But that is just really awesome that you're able to do that to those Black and Brown families. So tell us more about the World Asthma Day that you're participating in next week.
Okay, well, as you mentioned, we're both members of the board of the Chicago Asthma Consortium, and May is Asthma Month. And so there is a conference that's being held at the University of Illinois campus. It's next Wednesday. I don't have my calendar in front of me.
It's May 7th then.
May 7th, yes. And we'll have 2 panels. We'll have a panel in the morning, and that's generally talking about the asthma landscape, all the different changes and different things that we should know about asthma. The second panel in the afternoon, which starts at around noon, Well, first of all, the conference begins at 8, and then we have preliminaries, and then we have registration and everything, and the conference begins at 9. And the first panel will begin shortly thereafter. The second panel will just kind of take the information from the first panel, which talks about the asthma landscape. This is kind of where do we go from here? What are the kinds of things that we should be doing as organizations to help to improve the asthma landscape? Do we need to work more on policy? Do we need to ensure that our families and our communities are getting better educated? Do we need to be out there in the community? And so our panel of speakers will include, on that second panel, Matt Seymour, who is the Executive Director of Mobile Care. And then we'll have someone from the Respiratory Health Association, Erica Salem, who is a policy person. And we have a community health worker from the University of Illinois. Her name is Carmen. And so we have a diverse panel to kind of give perspectives around, what more can we be doing in the field of asthma to help the families and to help the communities that really need that work.
Awesome. So if you can go, please go to chicagoasthmaconsortium.org and check it out. Register and attend. It is going to be great information. And I think that asthma is so abundant, and the numbers, the air quality in Chicago is actually like almost one of the worst in the country. I hate to say, but which contributes to the reason why the asthma rates are so bad here. So definitely, somebody, or you somehow are connected to someone that has asthma, and so this is great information for you to have. And especially if you are anybody who's a caregiver for children, and even adults, because the way that the global warming has affected everyone, if you recall, the last 3 or 4 years, the allergy rates have gone up tremendously because the seasons have been just a little bit off. And so that meant the pollen counts were higher. And so people who never had allergies a day in their life are like, I'm struggling. What is wrong with me? I can't get rid of this cold. And it's like, no, it's actually allergies. You just never had them before, but that's what this is. So,
and I've been around for several years, and I was just diagnosed with allergies about 2 years ago. So I'm on allergy medication. Yes.
So you're one of those people. That's what
I'm one of those people.
Yeah. So, a lot of it was, it's been on the news and everything about how people all of a sudden were like, I never had a problem before. And now all of a sudden, and it's because of our environment, global warming. So that is why it's so important for everyone to learn and educate themselves on allergies and asthma, because it is so prevalent now. It's not, a needle in the haystack anymore. It's very prevalent. And I always say there's a lot of things you can live without, but you cannot live without breathing. So therefore, it's really important that you learn about asthma. If that's what you're diagnosed with, then you need to learn and understand and educate yourself so that you don't have to go through life not being able to breathe. I always worry, and I always feel bad for people who are, and I'm like, no, you need to go talk to the doctor, because clearly whatever medication you're on or you should be on, you're not on, because there's way too many medications out here now that treat asthma effectively. And there's just no reason that anyone should be struggling, because there's just way too many drugs on the market. And so if this one gives you a problem, well, then there's another one that they should be able to find for you. So
and not just the medications. I mean, with the mobile vans that are out there to help to treat children and other adults. I mean, these services, that the ones that we offer, that Mobile Care offer, they're free. I mean, no cost to families. And you have specialists actually seeing your children, diagnosing them, seeing them on a regular basis, prescribing the medication that they need, giving them the education they need, both for the child as well as the caregiver. So, the resources are out there. We just have to just make sure that people
have to find them. And then also, a lot of allergists now are doing telehealth visits, because of the fact that there are pockets in this country, unfortunately, that there is not an allergist, in that town or in the next town. So there are a lot of allergists across the country that are doing telemedicine visits. So therefore, you can still see an allergist, and they can maybe send you somewhere for your testing. They can look at your test results, and they can prescribe whatever, help you to treat yourself, help with your treatment. So, don't let that be a barrier either. there is a shortage of allergists across the country, and hopefully one day that'll be fixed. But there is a huge shortage, so there is probably, whoever's watching this, wherever you are, there may not be an allergist in your city. But if you do the research, there are resources out there, and there's vans like this, and there's also telemedicine, and you can still see an allergist or a pulmonologist. You can see them via the web. So
and our allergists they actually do the environmental and food testing on our vans and treat the children for that. So if you want information, you have Lake County listeners that need additional information, they can certainly feel free to call me.
Yep. And I have her website scrolling at the bottom, so feel free. And I will put it also in the post. You should be able to see, it'll have her website as well as her information, so you can check that out. But definitely, as the other problem that we do have also in our community is a lot of people go undiagnosed with allergies, whether it be food allergies or environmental. And sometimes when they find out, it is entirely too late. So you want to make sure that you, if you suspect something and you're able to get to an allergist, you need to definitely make sure that your child, or even as an adult, that you're tested, because just because you had a very slight, mild reaction the first time, the second time could be the reaction. You don't want that to happen. You want to know so that you can avoid it or do whatever you need to do, and carry whatever you need to carry, whatever epinephrine auto injector or whatever you need to carry, or the nasal, whatever you need to carry to make certain that you are covered in case something happens, because you just never know. But knowing is half the battle, which is why it is so awesome that you have doctors on the van doing allergy testing, because that is another problem that, they don't get diagnosed with asthma, but then they also don't get diagnosed with the allergies that they have. And, it's just one mistake. So that is really cool. But thank you, Helen, for your time today. And thank you for the amazing work you're doing, because like I said, our previous guest, I was telling her, and she was like, oh my God, that's what I want. I want to do a clinic. And I told her, I said, well, she has a clinic on wheels.
Yes. And we've removed the barriers to transportation.
Yeah. And I mean, here in Chicago, as you know, and even in Lake County, that's a huge thing,
It is.
Not everyone has a vehicle. Not everyone can get on the bus or the train. And so,
and we don't have, some communities don't even have the bus transportation. So actually taking the van to the schools where the children are, we're meeting them where they are and taking care of those children.
Yeah, that is wonderful. But yeah, so I am going to miss you in DC next week, but you guys have a great time here in Chicago with World Asthma Day. But yes, everyone, May 7th is World Asthma Day across the country. And so there will be lots of different things going on online, in your social media, and in your local community. So definitely, especially if you're somebody who has asthma in your family, check it out and see if you can find something to participate in World Asthma Day, so that you can get some more education, because you don't know what you don't know, but you might be able to save a life with the information you do learn. So absolutely, yes. Well, thank you for having me today. No problem. Everyone have a great time, great week. Okay, enjoy DC. Thanks.